A very good morning to one and all. Today, me and my colleagues are going to give a presentation on neonatal jaundice under the guidance of Dr. Ayushri ma'am. First, we will like to show a skit on how a mother comes to a doctor regarding her problems with a child, three days old child. Let's see the video. And I would like everyone to wear earphones for proper audio quality.
नाम क्या बच्चे का?
श्रेय।
एज क्या बच्चे की?
3 की।
जेंडर क्या बच्चे का?
मेल।
वेट कितना बच्चे का?
2.5 kg।
और बच्चा क्या क्या कंप्लेन?
2 दिन से थोड़ा येलोनेस लग रहा है बच्चे में एंड डेजीनेस भी बच्चे की थोड़ी सी ज़्यादा लग रही है।
और यूरिन कौन सी कलर का बच्चे स्केट कर रहा है?
पहले 2 दिन तो नॉर्मल थी पर तीसरे दिन थोड़ी सी येलो लग रही है।
और स्टूल कौन सी कलर का बच्चे?
2 दिन डार्क कलर में था, अभी थोड़ा सा येलो कलर है।
मोड ऑफ डिलीवरी क्या था?
नॉर्मल।
गेस्टेशनल एज क्या थी?
37 वीक्स।
और कौन सी प्रेगनेंसी आपकी?
ये सेकंड है।
और इससे पहले आपका कोई अबॉर्शन या फिर मिसकैरेज हुआ है? आपकी एज क्या है?
36।
और इसके पापा की एज क्या है?
38।
और इसके पापा की एज क्या है?
बिजनेस 36।
और आपके अलग के पापा की एज क्या है?
38।
और इसके पापा क्या करते?
बीकेसी।
और आपके पहले बच्चे की डिलीवरी कैसी हुई?
नॉर्मल।
और वो बच्चा हेल्दी है?
हाँ हेल्दी।
और आपका वैक्सीनेशन हुआ बच्चे का?
हाँ बीसीजी की वैक्सीन लगवाई है।
और ब्लड ग्रुप क्या है आपका?
मेरा वो पॉजिटिव।
और बच्चे का क्या है?
बी पॉजिटिव।
फाइल लीजिए।
Good morning, everyone. I am going to represent the case in brief and the points noted by the doctor during history taking. Mrs. Rani visited the pediatrics OPD with her 3 days old boy. This is her second pregnancy with an uneventful antenatal period up to 34 weeks, where the OGTT, oral glucose tolerance test, has showed the increased glucose level but was controlled on diet. She had a normal vaginal delivery. Baby's weight at birth was 2.7 kg. Apgar score, where A stands for appearance, means skin color, P for pulse, G for Grimac, means reflex action, A for activity, and R for respiration of the baby. Apgar score, which determines how well the baby can survive outside the mother's home. At 1 minute it is 9 and at 5 minutes it is 10. Blood sugars were monitored for early for 24 hours and was above 46 milligram. Gestational age for the baby was 37 weeks. Baby was last weighed 1 day ago, where the mother has noticed yellowish discoloration of the whole body and sclera. Baby was said to be lethargic, where the mother had to wake up the baby up during the fits. No other difficulty in feeding, excessive crying, fever, or discharge from umbilicus noted. Blood group of mother is O positive and of baby is B positive. This is not a consanguineous marriage. Urine output and bowel output was normal. During the first 2 days, stools were said to be dark in color, which turned yellowish by the 3rd day, but was not pale. Mother also mentioned of one episode of dark color urine on the 3rd day after the birth. The BCG vaccine given within the 24 hours. Now the further history will be continued by the Shraddha.
Further continuing the history, no findings reported in the antenatal history of APH, PPROM, and maternal diabetes mellitus. Anemia, splenectomy, metabolic disorder are not recorded. No family members with jaundice in the neonatal period. No history of anemia, bile stones in the family members, or hemolytic disorders. This is the mother's second pregnancy. No previous morbidities reported. Normal vaginal delivery. In social history, baby is living with his mother, father, grandmother, and the elder sibling who is 1.5 years. Mother is 36 years old housewife and father is 38 years old businessman. She receives a good family support. The family is financially stable. Now, I would like to call Sania for examination.
Clinical examination of the baby was done. The color of skin of the baby was checked. While doing so, it was made sure that the baby was held in natural light against non-yellow background with minimum blanching over bony surfaces. It was found that the baby had yellowish discoloration of skin. The Kramer's scale was used to estimate the serum bilirubin. Kramer's rule describes the relationship between serum bilirubin levels and skin discoloration. The skin discoloration progresses craniocaudally. Therefore, the face shows the discoloration first. And then when the discoloration extends only up to the face, the level of bilirubin in the serum is 4 to 6 mg per dl. When it is up to the chest and upper abdomen, the level of bilirubin is 8 to 10 mg per dl. When it extends up to lower abdomen and thighs, it is 12 to 4 mg per dl. In arms and lower legs, it is 15 to 18 mg per dl. And in palms and soles, it is 15 to 20 mg per dl. Now I would like to show a video regarding Kramer staging.
In this patient, we will apply the Kramer's criteria. Press the skin with the digital pressure and see the color of the blanched skin and subcutaneous tissue. If the color of the blanched area is yellow, then we will label the jaundice is present. So in this patient, you can see the yellow discoloration of the skin is present up to the sole and palm. So according to the Kramer's criteria, level is more than 15 milligram per dl. Zone 5. Thank you.
So after examination, the baby had yellowish discoloration that extended up to the palm and sole. Thus, the serum bilirubin level were approximately 15 to 30 mg per dl. The baby was checked for any signs of anemia. Anemia is a condition where you lack enough RBCs to carry adequate amount of oxygen. It is reported as low hemoglobin or hematocrit. A baby with anemia is mostly lethargic and irritable. Other symptoms of anemia are pallor, rapid heartbeat, rapid and irregular breathing. The baby on examination was found to be anemic. There were no signs of dehydration. The liver and spleen of the baby were palpated to check for hepatosplenomegaly. Palpation of liver was done as follows. The palpation begins at the level of right lower quadrant near the anterior iliac spine. Palpate for the liver with 1 or 2 hands, palm down, moving upward 2 to 3 centimeter at a time towards the lower costal margin. Have the patient take a deep breath. The liver will move downward due to the downward movement of diaphragm. Palpate the bottom margin of the liver for texture of the liver, that is soft, firm, hard, or nodular. Then for spleen, normally the spleen lies in the upper left quadrant and is quite posterior. Therefore, it is not always palpable. To palpate the spleen, place your right hand behind the patient's inferior rib cage to support it. Then use your left hand to palpate along the left costal margin. Have the patient take a deep breath. During the inspiration, perform deep palpation on the inferior edge of the spleen. The size of the liver and spleen of the baby were found to be normal. Now I would like to call upon Afreen to take over. Thank you. Good morning, everyone. First, the complete neurological examination was done to detect the kernicterus. Kernicterus is a severe condition that occurs when the bilirubin level is so high that it can move from the blood into the brain tissue. Kernicterus can causes the brain damage. For neurological examination, it is an evaluation of nervous system which can be done by various assessment like motor and sensory skills. Patient balance and coordination, mental status was checked, and the patient level of awareness, interaction with the environment, reflexes, and functioning of nerves was also checked. On examination, we have found that there is no sign for kernicterus or brain damage found in the baby. Then, examination for cephalohematoma was done. Cephalohematoma is a clot that occurs in the area between the skull and the periosteum as a result of ruptured blood vessel. Usually, cephalohematoma will manifest as a raised bump on the baby's head. Cephalohematoma is initially soft, but it can firm over the time. Then appearance alone is enough to diagnose the cephalohematoma, but for the verification, we can also perform the CT scan, X-ray, or the MRI. On examination, we have found that there is no sign for the cephalohematoma in the baby. Later on, we perform the any sign for the bruised or the bulged fontanelle was checked, and in this outward curving of the fontanelle occur. Bulging fontanelle is a sign of the brain swelling or the fluid buildup in the brain. The bulging fontanelle is an emergency condition which may lead to the damage of the baby's developing brain, which is commonly occur in the hydrocephalus condition or the brain tumors. For the verification, we can also perform the CT scan or the MRI scan. In this case, there was no sign for any bruised or the bulged fontanelle found in the baby. Then any sign for the abdominal mass was done. Then abdominal mass is nothing but the growth or the swelling in the part of the abdomen. It was checked by inspection, in which visual examination was done to check the shape of the abdomen or any swelling or any skin abnormality was there or not. Auscultation of abdomen is performed for detection of any altered bowel sound or not. Then palpation was also done for any abdominal tenderness. Deep palpation of abdomen was performed by placing the flat of the hand on the abdominal wall and applying the firm and the steady pressure. After examination, we found that there is no sign for abdominal mass in the baby. Now we check for the ascites. Ascites is nothing but the abdominal swelling caused by the accumulation of fluids, most often related to the liver diseases. It was checked by the inspection by observing the umbilicus, which is everted or not. Or percussion was also performed to evaluate the ascites. In that, shifting dullness and the fruit thrill are the two methods. If on percussion, the region of dullness shifts when the patient is turned from the supine position to the sideline. This is what done in the shifting dullness method. But in the fluid thrill method, place the palm of your left hand against the left side of the abdomen, flick the finger against the right side of the abdomen, and ask the assistant to place the edge of the hand on the midline of the abdomen. If the ripple is felt on flicking, we can call it as a fluid thrill. After examination, it was found that no excess fluid is present in the abdomen of the baby. Later, some other symptoms, baby also showed some other symptoms like sleeplessness, unwillingness to feed, and had a dark yellow colored urine and the pale faces. Now, I would like to call Siddhi to explain the anatomy. Thank you.
So in anatomy, I would like to say a few things about the hepatobiliary system. In this, there are organs and ducts as any other system in our body. The organs are the liver and the gallbladder, and the ducts are bile ducts and the cystic ducts and hepatic ducts. So I would like to give a gist about the flow of bile from liver to gallbladder and then to duodenum. First, the liver cells secrete bile. It is collected by a system of duct that flows from the liver through right and left hepatic ducts. Then these ducts combine to form the common hepatic duct. The common hepatic duct then joins with the cystic duct and joins with the cystic duct from the gallbladder to form the common bile duct. Common bile duct then drains into the duodenum via the major duodenal papillae, but not all the bile that is secreted in the liver drains into the major duodenal papillae. Almost about 50% of it is stored in the gallbladder where it gets concentrated, and it is released whenever the system needs it. And and now I would like to tell about the functions of the biliary system. The main function is to drain waste products from the liver into the duodenum. It helps in digestion and controlled release of bile. Then bile is a greenish yellow fluid that is secreted by the liver cells to perform two primary functions. First of all, to carry away the waste, and then to break down fats during digestion, that is emulsification of fats is facilitated by bile. Then bile salt is the actual component that helps break down and absorb fats. Bile, which is excreted from the body in the form of feces, is what gives its dark brown color. Now I would like to call upon Nabil to explain about the physiology.
Good morning, everyone. I'd like to talk about the metabolism of bilirubin. Bilirubin in the body is formed by the degradation of heme. Heme, a major source of heme in the body is 75% by the catabolism of RBC, and breakdown of hemoglobin. The globin chain separates from the hemoglobin and heme is further metabolized. The minor sources of heme are the other tissue heme proteins or inappropriate erythropoiesis, which get degraded. This heme enters the reticuloendothelial system and is acted upon by heme oxygenase, which converts it into biliverdin. Biliverdin in humans is acted upon by biliverdin reductase and is converted into bilirubin. Bilirubin, being insoluble in plasma, needs a carrier protein to be transported to the liver. So bilirubin is bounded with serum albumin, which carries it to the liver for conjugation. In the liver, it dissociates with serum albumin and binds with another protein called as ligandin. Then it dissociates with ligandin and is acted upon by glucuronil transferase, which converts bilirubin and conjugates it into bilirubin diglucuronide. It is excreted into the bile, and bilirubin diglucuronide enters the intestine. In the intestine, it is acted upon by beta-glucuronidase and again converted into bilirubin. Bilirubin then is acted upon by intestinal bacteria and converted into urobilinogen, some part of which is absorbed by the blood and enters the kidney, where it is converted into bilin and excreted into the urine. Majority of the urobilinogen is converted into stercobilin and excreted into the feces, which gives the respective color of urine and feces. Thank you. And I would like to call Surbi for the pathology.
Good morning, everyone. So we'll talk about neonatal jaundice. Neonatal jaundice is by two mechanisms, that is physiological and pathological. In physiological jaundice, the children have RBCs twice or more than twice the number compared with the adults, and with shorter lifespan. Increased rate of red blood cells destruction produces elevated level of bilirubin, which ends up in jaundice. The newborn GIT is considered sterile, so a small amount of unconjugated bilirubin is converted to conjugated and excreted. Most of the unconjugated bilirubin is recirculated through the enterohepatic circulation. Unconjugated hyperbilirubinemia is the predominant form of physiological jaundice. Physiological jaundice is benign and resolves within 10 to 14 days of life. Now, there is one more thing, that is in children, they have immature liver due to underdeveloped UDPG T enzyme. So, and the enzyme which is responsible for the conjugation of bilirubin. Now, talking about the pathological, the majority of neonatal jaundice is due to pathological conditions. Pathological neonatal jaundice is due to acquired or inherited conditions. Pathological jaundice is the result of an increase in the level of unconjugated bilirubin, which is named as indirect hyperbilirubinemia. Acquired pathological neonatal jaundice, if we talk about, then the major factor is less production of, as I said, UDP glucuronide transferase enzyme. Then there is one more, hemolytic diseases, and in which contains RH incompatibility, ABO incompatibility, and sickle cell anemia. Talking about Rh factor hemolytic disease, it is also known as Rh hemolytic disease of newborns, that is RHDN. RHDN is the result of alloimmunization of the maternal red blood cells when the mother is pregnant with a Rh positive fetus. In the first pregnancy, if the fetus is Rh positive, some of the fetal blood is mixed with the maternal blood during birth. The maternal body forms antibodies, that is IgG, against the fetal Rh antigen, but the firstborn is not affected. In the second birth, if the fetus is Rh positive, the predominant maternal anti-Rh antibody will cause hemolysis of the fetal blood. This condition may lead to either mild or severe hemolytic anemia and may occasionally end up with hydrops fetalis. Then talking about ABO blood group incompatibility. ABO blood group incompatibility is another form of alloimmunization of the maternal blood cells against the fetal erythrocytes. ABO incompatibility occurs when the mother has O group of the blood and pregnant with a fetus with A or B blood group. The maternal blood cells will form anti-A antibodies or anti-B antibodies, that is IgM, which can cross the placenta and causes hemolysis of the fetal erythrocytes, causing increased unconjugated bilirubin and jaundice. This condition, unlike RHDN, develops in the first newborn. Now, there's one more, that is sickle cell anemia, which also the major cause of hemolytic disease. Then the another factor is G6PD deficiency, that is glucose 6-phosphate dehydrogenase is an important enzyme found in the red blood cells and incorporated in the hexose monophosphate pathway, that is HMP shunt. G6PD collaborates in the production of NADPH and reduction of glutathione, thus helping in decrease the oxidative stress around the RBCs. A deficiency in the G6PD occurs due to genetic defects, which lead to increased oxidative stress in the RBCs and the hemolysis of the fetal blood cells. Now, there's one more, congenital obstruction of bile duct, which also is responsible for the acquired neonatal jaundice. All upon this to continue further for the inherited pathological neonatal jaundice.
Good morning, everyone. I would like to discuss about the inherited part of the pathological jaundice, which is caused mainly due to 4 reasons. One of them is the disorder of defective bilirubin hepatic reuptake and storage. Reason behind this is not well known. Next one is due to the disorder of bilirubin conjugation. In this, the first one is the Gilbert syndrome. It is an autosomal recessive disorder. In this, there is a defect of the enzyme UDP glucuronidase transferase. So due to this, there is an impairment in the conjugation of bilirubin. Then next we have the Crigler-Najjar syndrome. It is of 2 types, type 1 and type 2. Type 1 is more severe than the type 2. Type 1 is also known as congenital non-hemolytic jaundice. And there is total absence of the enzyme UDP glucuronidase transferase, and it is also associated with several gene mutations. Then the next one, the Crigler-Najjar syndrome type 2. In this, there is a point mutation in the gene of that enzyme UDP glucuronidase transferase, where there is an amino acid substitution, due to which there is a reduced activity of this enzyme. Then the next one is the breast milk jaundice. It is the continuation of the physiological jaundice beyond 1 week. It is a combination of genetic mutation as well as the environmental factors. One of the cause of breast milk jaundice could be the deficiency of the enzyme beta-glucuronidase, due to which there is increase in bilirubin. In the last one, we have the Lucy-Driscoll syndrome. It is also known as transient familial neonatal hyperbilirubinemia, as it is a rare familial disorder and it is associated with the inhibitor of the enzyme UGT. The third cause for inherited pathological jaundice is disorder of excretion into bile, which includes the Dubin-Johnson syndrome. In Dubin-Johnson syndrome, there is a genetic mutation in the transporter, which results in the absence of the transporter mechanism. And the last one is disorder of the reuptake of bilirubin that includes the Rota syndrome, that is an autosomal recessive disorder. So now I would like to call upon Shay for explaining the investigation.
Good morning, everyone. To begin with the investigations, first we have the transcutaneous bilirubinometer. It is a device which is used for the assessment of neonatal jaundice for the measurement of transcutaneous bilirubin value. First, we begin with the characteristic features of it. It screens for unconjugated hyperbilirubinemia. It measures the reflected light transmitted onto the skin. It estimates the TSB, that is a total serum bilirubin level from mathematical algorithm accounting for hemoglobin and skin pigments. It is predictive in identifying babies that need phototherapy. The procedure, it includes by placing the transcutaneous bilirubinometer on sternum or forehead. As it is evident from the picture, it is placed on baby's sternum. Advantages. The first being it decreases the number of invasive blood tests. It is suitable for babies first whose postnatal age is greater than 24 hours. Second being the gestational age greater than 35 weeks, more reliable in term babies. It is not recommended to assess bilirubin if the jaundice is prolonged or there is conjugated hyperbilirubinemia. As mentioned in earlier slide, it is used for only unconjugated hyperbilirubinemia. The second being if the baby is having any phototherapy or has had any phototherapy, or if the baby has had an exchange transfusion. To mention, if the TCB, that is a transcutaneous bilirubin value, is greater than 250 micromole per liter or less than 50 micromole per liter, which is less than the threshold for phototherapy, we need to measure the total serum bilirubin level. Now I would like to call Ayush to explain the further part of investigations.
Good morning, one and all. I would like to talk about the total serum bilirubin. It is a gold standard for diagnosing hyperbilirubinemia. It is measured if the baby is visibly jaundiced, if it is less than 24 hours of age, or it is less than 35 weeks of gestation period. We have to continue measuring the TSB value if the level is at or above the treatment threshold. The therapeutic intervention is being considered. Next. Now I would like to speak about the hematological aspect of the investigation. We have to take the full blood count of the neonate, and it is important and maybe need to be repeated if the baby looks unwell, is less than 24 hours of neonatal age, looks pale, or is at a risk of polycythemia. We have to check for the blood group compatibility, and we have to test for the maternal antibodies. We have to test the baby's cord blood, or if not available, we have to test the baby's blood for ABO and IgG blood types. We have to also test for the direct anti-globulin test. Next, I would like to call Vishal. I would like to call Vishal for taking the further investigations.
Hello everyone. I would like to comment on other investigation of jaundice, prolonged jaundice, and its various aspects. So, in other investigations, consider checking the electrolytes and urea if concerned regarding hydration. In case of infection, C-reactive protein is indicative of infection or inflammatory processes. In blood culture, unwell baby of any age, and then urine microscopy and culture. Basically, urinary tract infection is a potential cause of prolonged jaundice. Then investigate for inborn error of metabolism if baby looks unwell and the jaundice is severe. For example, galactosemia and tyrosinemia. In case of liver diseases, we will check albumin levels. Decreased level results in poor bilirubin binding capacity and risk of bilirubin toxicity. Liver function test as liver enzymes may be increased, for example, in congenital infections, inborn error of metabolism. So now prolonged jaundice. In prolonged jaundice, clinical judgment is needed when considering the investigations required for a baby who continues to be jaundice after 10 to 14 days for a term baby or after 3 weeks for a preterm baby. Here, preterm baby is the one who is born before 37 weeks of pregnancy. The most common cause of prolonged jaundice is breast milk jaundice. It occurs in up to 30% breastfeeding babies do not advise to stop breastfeeding as the risk of breastfeeding with jaundice does not outweigh the benefits. Here are some points. Diagnosis of prolonged jaundice is based on history and clinical examination. It occurs in well babies with good weight gain. Total serum bilirubin peaks between days 5 and 6 and does not exceed 200 micromole per liter. This disease is self-limiting. It resolves by the 12 weeks of age. So that's why it's called prolonged jaundice. Sorry, self-limiting. Now I will be explaining various aspects of prolonged jaundice. In case of progression of early jaundice, doctor will go through history, weight gain, and feeding. And he will check blood tests like total serum bilirubin, including conjugated bilirubin, whole blood count, and liver function test, and other tests like thyroid function test. And in case of recurrent or new presentation of jaundice, urine test like microscopy and culture, and blood test like full blood count and reticulocyte count. Basically, urinary tract infection is a potential cause of prolonged jaundice. In case of unwell baby, we will check urine CMV. Then we will check the color of stool, like it is pale or not. Then abdominal ultrasound scan to assess possibility of extrahepatic biliary disease. And if the cause is genetic, we will go through family history and RBC metabolic disorders. And now I would like to call Siddhi to explain treatments. Thank you.
Hello everyone. Let's move ahead with treatment and management. But before that, I would like to tell you about how to approach a jaundice baby. First of all, the baby is supposed to be assessed visually every 12 hours for first 3 to 5 days. And this has to be coupled with the transcutaneous bilirubinometer measurements. If the baby is severely jaundiced, then we have to start with phototherapy right away and keep measuring the baby's total serum bilirubin to check for prognosis and to confirm whether baby needs exchange transfusion or not. If the baby is not severely jaundiced but still has significantly high levels of bilirubin, we need to give it the phototherapy. And if the jaundice levels are not that high, the baby can be kept under observation for 12 to 24 hours for the next few days. And we have to check the bilirubin levels, and then if the levels are normal, we can discharge baby. Coming on to treatment and management, there are basically 3 ways in which we can treat jaundice. The first one being phototherapy. Phototherapy is a treatment with a special type of light, not sunlight. It is based on the principle of photooxidation. Photooxidation adds oxygen to bilirubin so that it dissolves in water easily, and this makes it easier for the baby's liver to process it, to break it down, and to remove the bilirubin from the blood. There are 2 main types of phototherapy. First one is conventional phototherapy, where the baby is laid under a halogen or fluorescent lamp with its sides covered. As we can see in the photo, the baby's eyes are covered and the baby is kept under a halogen lamp. Then the second one is fiber optic phototherapy, where the baby lies on a blanket that incorporates fiber optic cables. Light travels to the fiber optic cables and shines onto the baby's back. As you can see in the photo, the blanket has fiber optic cables and the light travels through these cables. Then these types of phototherapy will be usually stopped in between for 30 minutes after every 3 to 4 hours, so that the baby can be fed and the diapers can be changed and all. And if baby's jaundice does not improve even after conventional or fiber optic phototherapy, then we can go for multiple continuous phototherapy, which involves using more than one type of light, and often a fiber optic blanket is used at the same time. And the treatment won't be stopped in continuous multiple phototherapy. Intravenous fluids need to be given if the baby becomes dehydrated during the treatment and if they are not able to drink a sufficient amount. In this photo, we can see that after phototherapy, the yellowish discoloration of the baby is completely gone. So the jaundice has been cured. Coming on to the next treatment method, that is exchange transfusion. If the baby has very, very high levels of bilirubin in their blood, or phototherapy has not been that effective, they may need a complete blood transfusion known as exchange transfusion. The blood is replaced with blood from a suitable matching donor, someone with the same blood group, obviously. As the new blood won't contain bilirubin, the baby's bilirubin level will drastically drop, and we need to test the baby's blood within 2 hours of treatment to check if it's been successful. In the photo, as we can see that the donor's blood is being injected into the baby and the baby's blood has been removed. So if the level of bilirubin in baby's blood remains high, the procedure may need to be repeated. Now I would like to call upon Shreyas to continue with other treatments.
Hi guys, very good morning to all of you. This is Shreyas Sonone, and I am going to conduct a session about the other treatments in neonatal jaundice. So let's get started. First of all, phenobarbital is a drug which increases the hepatic glucuronidase transferase activity and conjugation of bilirubin. It is used to treat Crigler-Najjar, which is a rare genetic disorder, while the Gilbert syndrome, which is caused due to the glucuronidase transferase activity. It is not effective as urgent treatment as it takes some time for effort. Sedation and neurologic side effects limits its uses. Another method is metal metalloporphyrins. Tin and zinc, these metals can be used in this method, but due to the safety issues, their long-term safety are still under study, so it is not yet approved by the FDA. So another method is intravenous immunoglobulin. This has been effective in infants with RH and ABO hemolytic disease and reduces the need for exchange transfusion. According to the American Association of Pediatrics recommends that this is an immune hemolytic disease if the total serum bilirubin levels are rising despite of the phototherapy. The dose is 500 mg or 1 gram per kg over 2 hours repeated in 12 hours. Then another method is the albumin. Albumin helps to transport the bilirubin levels, and it helps in preventing bilirubin toxicity. So it can be given if the albumin levels are low. So these are the other treatments rather than the phototherapy and the exchange transfusion. Thank you so much.
So here we come to an end of our presentation. We hope that you all liked it. And also I would like everyone to wait until after the end, where we have prepared a short video on how we have made the presentation and behind the process of it. So thank you. वीडियो अभी दिखाओ क्या? किधर है आए मूवी? अनएडिटेड. अरे इसमें वो वाला बच्चे का नाम क्या है बोलो?
Thank you, everyone.